Alright, we have some cards we need to transform. Let's get that out of the way right now. Because I've been waiting a long time to turn this sandworm into a kraken, but I wanted to hold off until we got a kraken legitimately. So, the kraken only takes 1000 EXP from the sandworm, so you can actually get this card really early, considering you can get the sandworm in one of the first stages of the game. And it's just really good. It would kind of break a lot of the early game over its knee if I were to get it, so I waited a bit. Where's the challenge in the LP if I don't give myself some arbitrary restrictions, right? Meanwhile, we have a couple of necromancers. We could turn it into a lich, but we haven't seen those yet, so we're just gonna leave it. We could turn the Mega Mandragore into a treant, but that would be a terrible waste. And that's pretty much all we have for transformable cards. Nothing we can really buy, we're completely out of gold, even though the shop is now selling Tiger Mages. So, we're going to just head off to the next level, which is going to be the Burned-in Field, which is actually a pretty good level in terms of, things that you want to see. As you may notice, we've got a couple of scattered cards through our deck that I want to get experience. The Sand Golem, the Elephant, the Larval Fly, all of them very good cards, all of them absolutely need the experience that we're going to be giving them. Especially considering we need to transform a couple of them into cards to get 100% completion. So, the Burned-in Field is a very long, very narrow passageway, singular passageway. It's got a couple of clearings in it, but it's really not a field. It's more of a couple of clearings surrounded by plateaus. But, one of the notable things about this level is that one of the regular enemies is our old friend the Dragon Knight. Now, Dragon Knights can actually be pretty nasty if you don't handle them carefully. Their sword attacks can petrify you, which means that you will not be invulnerable for the duration of the petrify. Also, you'll be unable to move. So, they'll hit you once, and if you're unlucky, they'll be able to hit you multiple times, and right off the bat, that's awful. So, using invincibility frames from your attacking cards, your weapon cards, should be able to get you through Dragon Knights fairly easily. So the Royal Guard apparently had a scrap with some monsters, and according to the Red Fairy, the king just kinda went with them, so we may finally encounter our father. It's been a while, so we're overdue for it. But of course we can't go on without collecting treasure, especially treasures so valuable as a free Dragon Knight. Though, I'm not so hot about the wizard. Never trust a wizard. Another thing about this level that kinda bugs me, oh, secret passage off to the right, is that the music seems a little bit weird. It's like they heard that putting a more march-like theme behind the main... Oh, this is actually interesting. So, this exposition is never actually presented in the game proper, but apparently the Enchanter, or it isn't provided for a long while, the Enchanter controls 5 runestones, presumably, from 5 kingdoms across an unknown expanse of sea or land or sky or whatever it's supposed to be that gets you to a second kingdom. And now he's come over here to try to take over our land, so maybe he just wants more runestones. I can't blame him. They give you 50 more health and 5 more magic crystals per use. So we've got even more treasure over here. I don't think there's anything we didn't already have, but stone heads are pretty useful. Also, the music has a looping issue in this stage. But, as I was saying, it's like they heard that you just put kind of a marching theme behind your main theme to try to give it some urgency, but it didn't really work out that well. It just kind of ends up half-assed. So the thing firing multiple shots at us is an archer tree, and they're pretty nasty for reasons we'll see later in the stage. Luckily, they're one of the only 2 types of enemies in this level that aren't bosses, so them and Dragon Knights are going to be seen pretty frequently here. I should mention about Dragon Knights, they have a very high stagger point, so if you have multi-hit attacks like elephants, you should be able to hit them multiple times. Red Fairy laying down some knowledge for an upcoming fight. I'm sure that tip about a lich won't be useful at any time in the near future. Oh, look, a dragon skeleton. And of course there's a lich. So, welcome to one of 2 boss fights for this area. This one is a bit weird. And actually, it's one of the most useful fights. What you're going to be fighting is a lich, and there are multiple ways to handle this fight. Probably the most straightforward, if you don't want to really mess with this fight much, is going to be taking out the lich as quickly as possible. The dragon is stationary, but will be able to attack anywhere on the field, so it's really just a matter of try to make sure that you stay out of the dragon's line of fire, or you'll be taking a lot of damage. But as you can see, that lich gave a lot of experience, so if you exit and reload, the boss will appear again. So let's try taking it out this way. Cockatrice cards are very good against the zombie dragon boss because they hit multiple times and because they're high stagger point. For the dragon, that is, not for the cockatrice. Now, one of the really cool things about this boss, and one of the reasons that it's so helpful, is the fact that both the zombie dragon and the lich are not actually tagged within the game as uncapturable. Which means that you can actually capture both the giant zombie dragon and his lich master. And because they respawn whenever you exit the stage, you essentially have an unlimited supply of zombie dragons and liches. So you can use them to get experience for cards that need it, like the Larval Fly, or you can just farm them for cards to sell, or you can just farm them for the hell of it. Granted, if you do just want to get past this fight as quickly as possible, taking out the lich is probably your best bet. But I like cards, so we're going to capture a lich. In fact, we're going to capture like 7 liches. You're going to see in the next couple of videos, our deck could use a lot more of these than we already have, because I just kept farming this boss battle over and over. And one final notable thing about this fight is that since it does have an exceptionally high stagger point and doesn't move, the dragon is actually weak to dragons. So as you can see, that did about 200 damage to the zombie dragon. If you've already farmed up a red dragon and you're having any trouble with that boss, toss the red dragon out there, it'll be fine. And no matter which way you defeat that boss, if you go to the corpse of the zombie dragon, or where the corpse was, you find a free zombie dragon card. It's a bit useless at this point because I just captured about 5 or 6 of them, but I appreciate the effort. Get another healing card we don't need from that chest. Rebus is a bit interesting because it does combine both healing and card regeneration. So it's like a miniature version of the Sea Monk combined with a miniature version of the Fairy. But ultimately it just ends up worse than both of them, so there's really no use to it. But of course, most of the way through the level, they're going to give you a deck point, make sure that you can toss out, you know, a couple of cards you don't need, or toss in a couple of cards you found. Or just regenerate your health. Now, I should mention the archer tree. It's a really bad summon because the shots are really inaccurate. I was going to toss it in here because I might demonstrate it, but I don't think I ever get a chance to. But as an enemy, they seem to be more accurate than they are when you use them. And they fire 3 shots, all 3 of which can inflict poison. So if you get hit by any of their shots, you might be poisoned, and poison does that little minor stagger every couple of seconds. And so do the shots from the archer tree. Now, if you want to exit the stage, this is your final point. After this, there's no turning back, final boss fight of this stage. So, be sure to get ready. But once we go over here, we get a cutscene. Alright, boss fight, Beelzebub. Yeah, it's really called Beelzebub. This boss fight is terrible for a number of reasons, but the primary one is those two archer trees. Flunky bosses are never really my favorite, and this is no exception. Because those archer trees, and I actually got very lucky with them this round, they didn't move much, those archer trees have a tendency to hop around away from you whenever they're not firing, which makes it a lot more difficult to actually get to them and take them out. And, because both they and Beelzebub can inflict poison, chances are you're going to end up with mini staggers throughout the fight, which will just make you more vulnerable to the guys doing the DPS at the back of the fight. It's kind of difficult, but if you have a couple of powerful attacks and you can take out either Beelzebub or the archer trees very quickly, it can be to your benefit. And the king is dead. Long live the queen. Can I just say though, that king had a really badass looking sword. And I farmed up that Larval Fly for ages, only to end up actually getting the boss pull for Beelzebub on the very first try. So, turns out I didn't need to do that at all, which kinda ticked me off because I'd been farming that boss fight with the Lich and the Zombie Dragon for like a half hour, but it was the safe move to make, and if you do need a Beelzebub card, farming up a Larval Fly is a good idea for a reason we'll see in a moment here. But we finally made it up to 50 fairies. What is our reward, Alexander? Tell us, what card will you give? Oh, we already have it. So yeah, if you didn't manage to find a Goblin Lord in the mines, which admittedly you probably wouldn't have, because they're kind of a rare encounter, you can get one here, but it's pretty worthless since we're going to encounter them later anyway. But now it's time to start transforming a couple of cards. First things first, the Larval Fly. If you have it up to 2100 experience, you can actually transform the Larval Fly into a Beelzebub, which means if you've gone to the Frozen stage and captured a Larval Fly there, you can just farm it on this boss before you exit the level to make sure that you're guaranteed a Beelzebub. And of course, since you can capture a Lich, none of the boss cards in that level are actually necessary to capture. Our Crystal Rose finally has enough experience to become an Ice Golem if we really wanted it to, but we don't, so forget that. And I'm actually fairly fond of the Necromancers, and we already have a ton of Liches, so I won't transform it for now. But our little elephant is finally ready to become crowned king himself. He has gotten 2000 experience, which is just enough. And, okay, can I just point out, this card is both lethal and easy to use. In the very description of the Elephant King, and I'll be damned if that isn't true, the Elephant King has a massive attack spread. And it does a lot of damage. So, while it can be a little bit difficult to get an Elephant King, it's usually worth it. Last but not least, we are going to get the Decoy Pillar with an E for some reason. And we're going to get it by transforming our Sand Golem, because it can only be acquired via transformation. The Decoy Pillar is one of, I think, 2 cards in the game that are only ever available by transforming, which makes it a bit weird to find, and makes it so it'll be missed by a lot of players. But it looks a bit goofy, but it has massive defenses and a moderate amount of HP. Plus, it's completely stationary, so you'll always know where your opponents are standing. With that said, I think that's the last of our transformation cards for today. I can kind of show you what the Stonehead would transform into, even though we don't want any of them. They're all downgrades. And of course, our Dark Raven, unlike the second game, does not have an effective transformation for this part of the game. Oh, I was wrong. We have one more. The Dragon Knight has just barely scraped by 3000 experience. Guess I forgot to duplicate a couple of them in a row. And it has enough experience to turn into the Chaos Knight. Now, we did just get a couple extra Dragon Knights from that stage, so I see no disadvantage to transforming this now. and in fact, it'll help us in the next stage. The Chaos Knight is pretty much objectively worse than the Dragon Knight due to a delay in attacking, but with that said, it's still not a terrible card. It is very powerful, so if you can get the attack to land, it'll be to your benefit. But with that, we've finished up everything for this episode, so next time we're heading to the Castle of White, where we will hopefully find our 4th runestone. I'll see you all then.